The Midday Mix on Mix 93.8.
It is time for the Business Boost. We're joined by CEO and founder of NSBC Africa, Mr. Mike Anderson. Mike, welcome back to the show. How are you today, sir?
Damian, good, thank you. Good to be back, as always.
Very, very good to have you on the show. So we're going to be talking about getting more out of your employees. And it seems like the more control people have over their work, the greater their job satisfaction. Do you find this to be true?
Damian, the most important asset for every business is, of course, the people within it. And, you've got to give your people as much control over what they do as possible. Research tells us that control is the biggest factor in whether people feel stressed out or invigorated when facing a challenge. And the more control people have over their work, the greater their job satisfaction, the higher their work quality, and the lower their stress levels. Absolutely crucial.
100%. Communication clearly and often about everything seems to be like quite an important factor, because I think a lot of times employees feel like, maybe they're a little bit left in the dark. They might not fully understand things. Would you say that it's a really important factor?
Damian, you cannot operate in the dark. Communicate clearly and often about everything important. One of the greatest sources of employee stress is not knowing about the changes taking place in the company, not knowing the performance expectations, and not knowing if they're doing a great job or not. Communicating clearly in these areas not only reduces employee stress, it also helps them to do a far greater job.
Now, another, I suppose, important point to add would be encouraging employees to be able to talk freely. I suppose there's no value in people not really, being able to speak their mind for fear of, upsetting their employer and, possibly leaving out some very important details that they might need to know as the employer.
Damian, many people might find this point quite strange, but it's absolutely vitally important for every SME environment. Encourage employees to talk freely and support one another. An all-work and no-play environment burns out people quickly. Having a workplace where co-workers can talk without worrying about getting into trouble is especially important in high-pressure careers. Encouraging connections amongst co-workers also reduces stress, because having social support reduces the negative effects of stressful situations.
Now, when we think of our employees, I suppose people don't really take into consideration the hiring process, but it seems like it'd be quite a crucial point in, having a fully satisfied work staff and people who feel like they're capable and in control.
Very, very few business owners get this right, and for many it takes years to perfect this. You've got to improve your hiring and orientation process, because the first few months of any job are the most stressful. New employees are often the most vulnerable. For companies that have a sink or swim approach to new employees, these first few months is also a time of high turnover. The more effective your hiring, new hire orientation and training is, more likely new employees will be well suited to and prepared for their jobs ahead.
Now, do you have any other tips for us that are kind of based around resources and training?
Damian, the last point, but extremely important again, make sure your people in your team have the resources and training to do their jobs well. When people feel inadequate, they feel ill-equipped to handle a challenge, they get stressed out. If employees don't have the tools, technology, time, staff, or training to do their jobs well, they're going to be stressed out and won't be able to perform at their true potential. Investing in these areas pays huge dividends, both in terms of reduced stress-related costs and increased productivity.
Well, these are some very interesting points that you brought up, Mike. We thank you for your time and for joining us on the show again, as always, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
Damian, absolute pleasure. You have a good week too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Anderson, CEO and founder of NSBC Africa. Now, if you do need any more info or you want to delve in a little bit deeper into what Mike and the guys at NSBC Africa do, you're more than welcome to visit their website. It's www.nsbc.africa.
The Midday Mix on Mix 93.8.